second ticking, they stand tall. To save the world, they'll risk it all. Chrono Guardians, the time is now. With the power of the past, they make their vow. For family and freedom, they won't rest. They're the guardians of time, the very best. From the echoes of the past to the battles yet to come, the tailors fight with all they've got to right the wrongs undone. In a flash of neon light, they'll dive into the fray to stop the rising darkness and keep the night at bay. Chrono Guardians, heroes of the day, breaking through the chains, paving a new way. With every second ticking, they stand tall. To save the world, they'll risk it all. Chrono Guardians, the time is now. With the power of the past, they make their vow. For family and freedom, they won't rest. They're the guardians of time, the very best. Through the echoes of lost memories, they'll stand strong in the night. For every twist in the timeline, they'll fight with all their might. A journey through the decades, a mission that won't end. To rewrite history's pages, the tailors will defend. Chrono Guardians, heroes of the day, breaking through the chains, paving a new way. With every second ticking, they stand tall. To save the world, they'll risk it all. Chrono Guardians, the time is now. With the power of the past, they make their vow. For family and freedom, they won't rest. They're the guardians of time, the very best. Chrono Guardians, they're the ones who'll save the future from the dark, the world from the grave. In the heart of time, they're standing strong. Chrono Guardians, where they belong.
Welcome. We are finally off of the road, so we can bring the stream onto the laptop. So, since we have the laptop today, we're probably gonna work on some music again. So, let's go ahead and get that pulled up. As you can tell, I have a nervous tick, so I picked up my skin a lot. Man, I'm logged out of that. Hold on, you gotta give me a minute. I gotta get logged back into Autumn Edition. Oh, if I can remember the info. Oh man, no, this isn't good. Man. Okay, that doesn't seem to be working. So, let's just go ahead and pull up our website. If I can remember the website. I've been on the road for too long, guys. Let me tell you. Oh, whoops, wrong one. The stream has already started. Way to go. Let's do that. We'll just give it a quick cut. Okay. We made... Did we make anything? I'm trying to remember where we were.
Eyes closed, dreams awake. Feel the pulse begin to quake. Lights flash, crowds.
Alright, enough of that. Let's see what happens. Let's give this a go and see if it works. Searching for connections. Come on. Okay. The cats are probably wondering what in the world is going on. Attention. Big screen. All the avatar stuff's back in this game, understood. I think I have X-Force code. I don't know about that yet.
Here, but now they're gone. Seasons don't fear the reaper, nor do the wind, the sun, or the rain. We can be like they are. Come on, baby, don't fear the rain.
It's loud. Choppy, circle back, but I'm still responding. Monarch pistol. Let's go to that. Yeah, I thought it was good to go for that. Okay. Try that again. One, two. Yeah, unfortunately that didn't work out so well. But I should be able to do this. Come over here. Now that we have all the login info from my wife, we can get back into Adobe. Sorry guys, just give me 1 second. Teams.org. Continue. Okay, so that would be a capital. Okay, should be good to go again. Okay. Now we have that again. So let's go back. No, this, what is it? Okay, so no. Let's go with create. No. Okay, let's just go to custom. Let's go with this. Alright, let's do this one. Okay. Rock.
Down in the shadows where no light dares to go. Four brothers rise where the neon lights glow. In the heart of the city, we fight the unknown. From the darkness we come, this is our home. Where the echoes in the night, the guardians out of sight. In the sewers we unite, we're ready for the fight. Shout strong hearts of fire, heroes we aspire. Down in the shadows where the light dares to go. Four brothers rise where the neon lights glow. In the heart of the city, we fight the unknown. From the darkness we come, this is our home. Where the echoes in the night, the guardians out of sight. In the sewers we unite, we're ready for the fight. Shout strong hearts of fire, heroes we aspire. Together we stand higher, we're the shadows of the sewer. We move through the night, unseen and unheard, with a code of honor and a ninja's word. Through every trial, every scar, every pain, we rise from the ashes, over and again. We're the echoes in the night, the guardians out of sight. In the sewers we unite, we're ready for the fight. Shout strong hearts of fire, heroes we aspire. Together we stand higher, we're the shadows of the sewer. Woo! Born in the darkness, we found our way. Through the trials and the pain, together we stay. In a world that's forgotten, we carve our own path. Brothers in arms, we unleash our wrath. Steel and shell, we're bound by blood. Through every storm, through every flood, we fight for the light, we stand side by side. In this brotherhood of steel, we take pride. Each scar tells a story of battles we've won. Through the fire and the fury, we fight as one. No force can divide us, no fear can break. We rise from the ashes for honor's sake. Still and shell, we're bound by blood. Through every storm, through every flood, we fight for the light, we stand side by side. In this brotherhood of steel, we take pride. In the shadows we train, holding our and justice in sight. Together we stand, as brothers we'll fight. In this brotherhood of steel, we'll ignite.
It's pretty long song.
Born in the darkness, we found our way through the trials and the pain. Together we stay in a world that's forgotten. We carve our own path. Brothers in arms, we unleash our wrath. Steel and show, we're bound by blood. Through every storm, through every flood, we fight for the light. We stand side by side in this brotherhood of steel. We take pride. Born in the darkness, we found our way through the trials and the pain. Together we stay in a world that's forgotten. We carve our own path. Brothers in arms, we unleash our wrath. Steel and shell, we're bound by blood. Through every storm, through every flood, we fight for the light. We stand side by side. In this brotherhood of steel, we take pride. Each scar tells a story of battles we've won. Through the fire and the fury, we fight as one. No force can divide us, no fear can break. We rise from the ashes for honor's sake. Steel and shell, we're bound by blood. Through every storm, through
That these
every
beings
flood,
might have been
we fight for the light. We stand side by side. In this brotherhood of steel, we take pride.
Got that.
This is Audible.
Phoenix Audio.
We cannot survive any longer by. From the time a person leaves its mother's womb, its every effort is directed toward building, maintaining, and withdrawing into artificial wombs various sorts of substitute protective devices or shells. The objective of these artificial wombs is to provide a stable environment for both stable and unstable activity, to provide a shelter for the evolutionary processes of growth and maturity, in effect, survival, to provide security for freedom, and to provide defensive protection for offensive activity. This is equally true of both the general public and the elite.
58.
However, there is a definite difference in the way each of these classes. During my 2 days visit, I saw 5 separate and distinct types for the terrific conflict between the various authorities. Group won the day. We also know that 2 more ships, for which we can find no witnesses, either landed sometime after the 3 or were already at the base before the 3 landed. Etherians, calling attention to the fact that these beings might have been viewed as gods by Mr. Light. After the 3 or were already at the base before the 3 landed. Gerald Light specifically states that 5 ships were present and were undergoing study by the Air Force. His metaphysical experience is evident in that he calls the entities Etherians. Gerald Light capitalized Etherians, calling attention to the fact that these beings might have been viewed as gods by Mr. Light. The alien emblem was known as the trilateral insignia and was displayed on the craft and worn on the alien uniforms. Both of these landings and the second meeting were filmed. These films exist today. The treaty stated that the aliens would not interfere in our affairs and we would not interfere in theirs. We would keep their presence on Earth a secret. They would furnish us with advanced technology and would help us in our technological development. They would not make any treaty with any other Earth nation. They could abduct humans on a limited and periodic basis for the purpose of medical examination and monitoring of our development, with the stipulation that the humans would not be harmed, would be returned to their point of abduction, would have no memory of the event, and that the alien nation would furnish Majesty 12 with a list of all human contacts and abductees on a regularly scheduled basis. It was agreed that each nation would receive the ambassador of the other for as long as the treaty remained in force. It was further agreed that the alien nation and the United States would exchange 16 personnel with the purpose of learning of each other. The alien guests would remain on Earth. The human guests would travel to the alien point of origin for a specified period of time, then return, at which point a reverse exchange would be made. A reenactment of this event was dramatized in the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. A tip-off to who works for whom can be determined by the fact that Dr. J. Allen Hynek served as the technical advisor for the film. I noticed that the top-secret report containing the official version of the truth of the alien question, entitled Project Grudge, which I read while in the Navy, was co-authored by Lieutenant Colonel Friend and Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who was cited as a Central Intelligence Agency asset attached to Project Grudge. Dr. Hynek, the one who debunked many legitimate UFO incidents when he functioned as the scientific member of the very public Project Blue Book. Dr. Hynek is the man responsible for the infamous "it was only swamp gas" statement. It was agreed that bases would be constructed underground for the use of the alien nation, and that 2 bases would be constructed for the joint use of the alien nation and the United States government. Exchange of technology would take place in the jointly occupied bases. These alien bases would be constructed under Indian reservations in the Four Corners area of Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona, and one would be constructed in an area known as Dreamland. Dreamland was built in the Mojave Desert near or in a place called Yucca. I cannot remember if it was Yucca Valley, Yucca Flat, or Yucca Proving Ground, but Yucca Valley is what I always seem to want to say. More UFO sightings and incidents occur in the Mojave Desert of California than any other place in the world. So many, in fact, that no one even bothers to make reports. Anyone who ventures into the desert to talk to the residents will be astounded by the frequency of activity and with the degree of acceptance demonstrated by those who have come to regard UFOs as normal. According to the documents that I read, all alien areas are under complete control of the Naval Department. All personnel who work in these complexes receive their checks from the Navy through a subcontractor. The checks never make reference to the government or the Navy. Construction of the bases began immediately, but progress was slow. Large amounts of money were made available in 1957. Work continued on the Yellow Book. Project Red Light was formed, and experimentation in test-flying alien craft was begun in earnest. A super top-secret facility was built at Groom Lake in Nevada in the midst of the weapons test range. It was codenamed Area 51. The installation was placed under the Department of the Navy, and all personnel required a Q clearance as well as executive approval. This is ironic due to the fact that the President of the United States does not have clearance to visit this site. The alien base and exchange of technology actually took place in an area codenamed Dreamland above ground, and the underground portion was dubbed the Dark Side of the Moon. According to the documentation that I read, at least 600 alien beings actually resided full-time at this site, along with an unknown number of scientists and CIA personnel. Due to the fear of implantation, only certain people were allowed to interface with the alien beings, and those personnel were and are watched and monitored continuously. The Army was tasked to form a super-secret organization to furnish security for the alien task projects. This organization became the National Reconnaissance Organization based at Fort Carson, Colorado. The specific teams trained to secure the projects were called Delta. Lieutenant Colonel James Bogreitz was a Delta Force commander. A second project, codenamed Snowbird, was promulgated to explain away any sightings of the red light crafts as being Air Force experiments. The Snowbird crafts were manufactured using conventional technology and were flown for the press on several occasions. Project Snowbird was also used to debunk legitimate public sightings of alien craft. Project Snowbird was very successful, and reports from the public declined steadily until recent years. A multi-million-dollar secret fund was organized and kept by the military office of the White House. This fund was used to build over 75 deep underground facilities. Presidents who asked were told the fund was used to build deep underground shelters for the president in case of war. Only a few were built for the president. Millions of dollars were used to build top-secret alien bases as well as top-secret dumb, deep underground military bases. President Johnson used this fund to build a movie theater and pave the road on his ranch. He had no idea of its true purpose. The secret White House Underground Construction Fund was set up in 1957 by President Eisenhower. The funding was obtained from Congress under the guise of construction and maintenance of secret sites where the president could be taken in case of military attack, presidential emergency sites. The sites are literally holes in the ground deep enough to withstand a nuclear blast and are outfitted with state-of-the-art communications equipment. To date, there are more than 75 sites spread around the country which were built using the money from this fund. The Atomic Energy Commission has built at least an additional 22 underground sites. The location and everything to do with these sites were and are considered and treated as top secret. The money was and is in control of the military office of the White House and was and is laundered through so circuitous a web that even the most knowledgeable spy or accountant cannot follow it. By secret executive memorandum NSC 5510, Eisenhower had preceded NSC 5412/1 to establish a permanent committee to be known as Majesty 12 to oversee and conduct all covert activities concerned with the alien question. There were 19 members of Majesty 12. The first rule of Majesty 12 was that no order could be given and no action could be taken without a majority vote of 12 in favor, thus Majority 12. Orders issued by Majesty 12 became known as Majority 12 directives. This group was made up over the years of the top officers and directors of the Council on Foreign Relations and later the Trilateral Commission. Gordon Dean, George Bush, and Zbigniew Brzezinski were among them. By 1955, it became obvious that the aliens had deceived Eisenhower and had broken the treaty. Mutilated humans were being found, along with mutilated animals across the United States. It was suspected that the aliens were not submitting a complete list of human contacts and abductees to Majesty 12, and it was suspected that not all abductees had been returned. The Soviet Union was suspected of interfacing with them, and this proved to be true. The aliens stated that they had been and were then manipulating masses of people through secret societies, witchcraft, magic, the occult, and religion. You must understand that this claim could also be a manipulation. After several Air Force combat air engagements with alien craft, it also became apparent that our weapons were no match against them. In November 1955, NSC 5412/2 was issued, establishing a study committee to explore all factors which are involved in the making and implementing of foreign policy in the nuclear age. This was only a blanket of snow that covered the real subject of study, the alien question. By secret executive memorandum, NSC 5511 in 1954, President Eisenhower had commissioned the study group to examine all the facts, evidence, lies, and deception, and discover the truth of the alien question. A major finding of the alien study was that the public could not be told. It was believed that this would most certainly lead to economic collapse of the religious structure, and national panic, which could lead into anarchy. Secrecy thus continued. An offshoot of this finding was that if the public could not be told, Congress could not be told. Funding for the projects and research would have to come from outside the government. In the meantime, money was to be obtained from the military budget and from Central Intelligence Agency confidential, non-appropriated funds. Another major finding was that the aliens were using humans and animals for a source of glandular secretions, enzymes, hormonal secretions, blood plasma, and possibly in genetic experiments. The aliens explained these actions as necessary to their survival. They stated that their genetic structure had deteriorated and that they were no longer able to reproduce. They stated that if they were unable to improve their genetic structure, their race would soon cease to exist. We looked upon their explanations with extreme suspicion. Since our weapons were literally useless against the aliens, Majesty 12 decided to continue friendly diplomatic relations until such time as we were able to develop a technology which would enable us to challenge them on a military basis. Overtures would have to be made to the Soviet Union and other nations to join forces for the survival of humanity. A symposium was held in 1957, which was attended by some of the great scientific minds then living. They reached the conclusion that by or shortly after the year 2000, the planet would self-destruct due to increased population and man's exploitation of the environment without any help from God or the aliens. By secret executive order of President Eisenhower, the Jason scholars were ordered to study this scenario and make recommendations from their findings. The Jason Society confirmed the findings of the scientists and made 3 recommendations called Alternatives 1, 2, and 3. Alternative 1 was to use nuclear devices to blast holes in the stratosphere from which the heat and pollution could escape into space. They would then change the human cultures from that of exploitation into cultures of environmental protection. Of the 3, this was decided to be the least likely to succeed due to the inherent nature of man and the additional damage the nuclear explosions would themselves create. The existence of a hole in the ozone layer may indicate that Alternative 1 might have been attempted. This is, however, only conjecture. Alternative 2 was to build a vast network of underground cities and tunnels in which a select representation of all cultures and occupations could survive and carry on the human race. The rest of humanity would be left to fend for themselves on the surface of the planet. We know that these facilities have been built and are ready and waiting for the chosen few to be notified. Alternative 3 was to exploit the alien and conventional technology in order for a select few to leave the Earth and establish colonies in outer space. I am not able to either confirm or deny the existence of batch consignments of human slaves, which would be used for the manual labor as a part of the plan. The moon, codenamed Adam, was the object of primary interest, followed by the planet Mars, codenamed Eve. I am now in possession of official NASA photographs of one of the moon bases. I believe that the Mars colony is also a reality. As a delaying action, all three alternatives included birth control, sterilization, and the introduction of deadly microbes to control or slow the growth of the Earth's population. AIDS is only one result of these plans. It was decided by the elite that since the population must be reduced and controlled, it would be in the best interest of the human race to rid ourselves of the undesirable elements of our society. Specific targeted populations included blacks, Hispanics, and homosexuals. The joint United States and Soviet leadership dismissed Alternative 1, but ordered work to begin on Alternatives 2 and 3 virtually at the same time. In 1959, the RAND Corporation hosted a deep underground construction symposium. In the symposium report, machines are pictured and described which could bore a tunnel 45 feet in diameter at the rate of 5 feet per hour in 1959. It also displays pictures of huge tunnels and underground vaults containing what appeared to be complex facilities and possibly even cities. It appears that the previous 5 years of all-out underground construction had made significant progress by that time. The official space program was boosted by President Kennedy in his inaugural address when he mandated that the United States put a man on the moon before the end of the decade. Although innocent in its conception, this mandate enabled those in charge to funnel vast amounts of money into black projects and conceal the real space program from the American people. A similar program in the Soviet Union served the same purpose. In fact, a joint alien United States and Soviet Union base existed on the moon at the very moment Kennedy spoke the words. During the United States' initial space exploration and the moon landings, every launch was accompanied by alien craft. On November 20th, 1990, Los Angeles TV Channel 2 announced that a separate red, glowing, round-shaped object accompanied the Space Shuttle Atlantis on its latest classified military mission. That was the first public admission. A moon base, Luna, was photographed by the lunar orbiter and filmed by the Apollo astronauts. Domes, spires, tall round structures which look like silos, huge T-shaped mining vehicles that left stitch-like tracks in the lunar surface, and extremely large as well as small alien craft appear in the official NASA photographs. It is a joint United States and Soviet base. The space program is a farce and an unbelievable waste of money. Alternative 3 is a reality. It is not science fiction. Since our interaction with the aliens began, we have come into possession of technology beyond our wildest dreams. We currently have and fly atomic-powered anti-gravity type craft in Nevada. Our pilots have made interplanetary voyages in these craft and have been to the moon, Mars, and other planets. We have been lied to about the true nature of the moon, the planets, Mars, and Venus, and the real state of technology that we possess today at this very moment. There are areas on the moon where plant life grows and even changes color with the seasons. This seasonal effect is because the moon does not, as claimed, always present the exact same side to the Earth or the Sun. The moon has several man-made lakes and ponds upon its surface, and clouds have been observed and filmed in its atmosphere. It possesses a gravitational field, and man can walk upon its surface without a spacesuit, breathing from an oxygen bottle after undergoing decompression, the same as any deep-sea diver. I have the official NASA photographs. Some of them were published in the books We Discovered Alien Bases on the Moon by Fred Steckling and Someone Else is on the Moon. In 1969, a confrontation broke out between the Soviets and Americans at the lunar base. The Soviets attempted to take control of the base and held American scientists and personnel hostage. We were able to restore order, but not before 66 people were killed. The Soviets were suspended from the program for a period of 2 years. A reconciliation eventually took place, and once again we began to interact. Another plan is in force. It is the plan to prepare the public for eventual confrontation with an alien race. It could also intend to make you believe in an alien race that may not exist. The public is being bombarded with movies, radio, advertising, and TV programs depicting almost every aspect of the purported true nature of an alien presence. This includes the good and the bad. Look around and pay attention. Someone is planning to make their presence known, and the government is preparing you for it. They do not want any panic. The unprecedented number of sightings worldwide indicates that public exposure is not far off. Never in history have there been so many incidents involving UFOs, and never in history have there been so many official acknowledgments. For many years, the secret government has been importing drugs and selling them to the people, mainly the poor and minorities. Social welfare programs were put into place to create a dependent, non-working element in our society. The government then began to remove these programs to force people into a criminal class that did not exist in the 50s and 60s. The government encouraged the manufacture and importation of military firearms for the criminals to use. This is intended to foster a feeling of insecurity, which would lead the American people to voluntarily disarm themselves by passing laws against firearms. Using drugs and hypnosis on mental patients in a process called Orion, the CIA inculcated the desire in these people to open fire on schoolyards and thus inflame the anti-gun lobby. This plan is well underway and so far is working perfectly. The middle class is begging the government to do away with the Second Amendment. The media will convince the American people that a state of anarchy exists within the major cities. When public opinion has been won to this idea, they intend to state that a terrorist group armed with a nuclear weapon has entered the United States and that they plan to detonate this device in one of our cities. The government will then suspend the Constitution and declare martial law. The secret alien army of implanted humans and all dissidents, which translates into anyone they choose, will be rounded up and placed in the 1-mile square concentration camps which already exist. Are the people whom they intend to place in these concentration camps destined to make up the reported batch consignments of slave labor needed by the space colonies? The media, radio, TV, newspapers, and computer networks will be nationalized and seized. Anyone who resists will be taken or killed. This entire operation was rehearsed by the government and military in 1984 under the code name Rex 84 Alpha, and it went off without a hitch. When these events have transpired, the secret government and our alien takeover will be complete. Your freedom will never be returned, and you will live in slavery for the remainder of your life. You had better wake up, and you had better do it now. The conclusions are inescapable. 1. The secret power structure may believe that by our own ignorance or by divine decree, planet Earth will self-destruct sometime in the near future. These men sincerely believe that they are doing the right thing in their attempt to save the human race. It is terribly ironic that they have been forced to take as their partner an alien race which is itself engaged in a monumental struggle for survival. Many moral and legal compromises may have been made in this joint effort. These compromises were made in error and must be corrected. Those responsible should be brought to account for their actions. I can understand the fear and urgency that must have been instrumental in the decision not to tell the public. Obviously, I disagree with that decision. Throughout history, small but powerful groups of men have consistently felt that they alone were capable of deciding the fates of millions. Throughout history, they have been wrong. This great nation owes its very existence to the principles of freedom and democracy. I believe with all my heart that the United States of America cannot and will not succeed in any effort that ignores those principles. Full disclosure to the public should be made, and we should proceed to save the human race together. 2. We are being manipulated by a joint human alien power structure which will result in a one-world government and the partial enslavement of the human race. This has been deemed necessary to solve the elemental question: who will speak for planet Earth? It has been decided that man is not mature enough in his evolutionary development to be trusted to interact properly with an alien race. We already have enough trouble between the different human races, so what would happen if a totally alien extraterrestrial race was introduced? Would they be lynched, spit upon, or shot? Would discrimination result in nasty encounters that would doom humanity as a result of the aliens' obviously superior technology? Have our leaders decided to lock us in the playpen? The only way to prevent this scenario from taking place is to cause an evolutionary leap in consciousness, a paradigm shift for the entire human race. I have no idea how it can be done, but I know that it desperately needs to be done. It needs to be done very quickly and very quietly. 3. The government has been totally deceived, and we are being manipulated by an alien power, which will result in the total enslavement and/or destruction of the human race. We must use any and every means available to prevent this from happening. 4. If none of this is true, something else may be happening which is beyond our ability to understand at this moment. We must force disclosure of all of the facts, discover the truth, and act upon it. The situation in which we find ourselves is due to our own actions or inactions over the last 44 years. Because it is our own fault, we are the only ones who can change future events. Education seems to me to be a major part of the solution. The remaining part is the abolition of secrecy. And 5, there is always the possibility that I was used, that the whole alien scenario is the greatest hoax in history designed to create an alien enemy from outer space in order to expedite the formation of a one-world government. I have found evidence that this could be true. Through ignorance or misplaced trust, we as a people have abdicated our role as the watchdog of our government. Our government was founded of the people, for the people, by the people. There was no mention or intent ever to abdicate our role and place our total trust in a handful of men who meet secretly to decide our fate. In fact, the structure of our government was designed to prevent that from ever happening. If we had done our jobs as citizens, we would never have reached this point. Most of us are completely ignorant as to even the most basic functions of our government. We have truly become a nation of sheep. And sheep are always eventually led to slaughter. It is time to stand up in the manner of our forefathers and walk like men. You must understand that, real or not, the purported presence of aliens have been used to neutralize certain widely different segments of the population. Don't worry, the benevolent Space Brothers will save you. It can also be used to fill the need for an extraterrestrial threat to justify the formation of a new world order. The aliens are eating us. The most important information that you need to determine your future actions is that this New World Order calls for the destruction of the sovereignty of nations, including the United States. The New World Order cannot and will not allow our Constitution to continue to exist. The New World Order will be a totalitarian socialist system. We will be slaves shackled to a cashless system of economic control. If the documentation that I viewed while I was in naval intelligence is true, then what you have just heard is probably closer to the truth than anything ever spoken. If extraterrestrials are a hoax, then what you just heard is exactly what the Illuminati wants you to believe. I can assure you, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that even if aliens are not real, the technology is real. Anti-gravity craft exist, and human pilots fly them. I and millions of others have seen them. They are metal. They are machines. They come in different sizes and shapes. They are obviously intelligently guided.
Now, here is an interview with author William Cooper.
So, Mr. Cooper, are there larger numbers of people all the time who are receptive to your message and who are thinking a little bit more deeply and critically about these fundamental issues of government and politics that perhaps they did not give as much thought to in the past?
Oh, yes. In fact, I never dreamed that I would make such an impact. When I first began what I'm doing now, which was many years ago, I was lucky if I could travel 1,000 miles and collect 3 people in somebody's living room, none of whom, by the way, would help me pay for expenses or anything else, to sit down and listen to what I had to say. And I did this many times, travel all the way across the country just to talk to 2 or 3 or 4 people in somebody's home and put all the expenses myself. And now I can go to some place like the Salt Dome in Salt Lake City and fill the place up with people who want to come and hear what I have to say. I think the radio broadcast has had a lot to do with it. My book has certainly been the #1 underground book in the country for the last 8 or 9 years, and continues to be today. And I know that I'm really hitting the mark, and I'm really making people pay attention when the President of the United States, William Jefferson Clinton, names me in a White House memo, which Rush Limbaugh read on the air, as being the most dangerous radio host in America. To me, that was the most tremendous compliment that I could ever receive. Was worth more than $50 million in my estimation. And if I don't ever do anything more than what I've accomplished, I certainly have accomplished quite a bit in the way of waking up the average American to stop believing everything that he's told or taught and start questioning and using his own mind for something other than to hold up the top of his head. And I think that's happening. I think people are beginning to question and think and arrive at their own conclusions today a lot more than they ever have in history. Trusting people is what got us in this situation. And the whole concept that imperfect man can rule other imperfect men and it's going to turn out all right is the most ludicrous proposition that I've ever heard in my life.
I think there are a number of people that agree with what you say, who are aware of some of these facts. Again, the question to ask is, given that there may be ills and abuses on the part of the government today, what would be something that a person interested in seeing change could do? What sort of advice would you give somebody who wanted to have an effect for the better, who would want to influence events so that we would begin moving towards a change?
There are only two possible avenues of change at the present time. One is civil war, which we are heading toward right now. We're rushing toward a civil war in this country. And I foresee that that is probably the most reasonable expectation that we can see happening. Not that I want it to happen, not that a civil war is reasonable, but it's the reasonable conclusion after looking at the whole picture. The other is that we could somehow really educate the vast majority of what I call the American sheeple. These are people who are ignorant. Ignorant is not a bad word. It just means that they're without knowledge. If we could educate them and get them to understand that it is more important to stand up now and take a personal risk and educate other people and say that this has all got to stop, and be able to select our own candidates and make sure they get elected no matter what the press or the television or anybody else tells us about them. Put them in office, people who will support, protect, and defend the Constitution, like the liars and the charlatans who are in office now swear to do when they take their oath of office, but don't at all. Don't even attempt it, in fact. If you could get the people to do that, then there might be a possibility of a political, peaceful solution. But I can tell you right there that that's not going to happen. But it's the reasonable conclusion after looking at the whole picture. The other is that we could somehow really educate the vast majority of what I call the American sheeple. These are people who are ignorant. Ignorant is not a bad word. It just means that they're without knowledge. If we could educate them and get them to understand that it is more important to stand up now and take a personal risk and educate other people and say that this has all got to stop, and be able to select our own candidates and make sure they get elected no matter what the press or the television or anybody else tells us about them. Put them in office, people who will support, protect, and defend the Constitution, like the liars and the charlatans who are in office now swear to do when they take their oath of office, but don't at all. Don't even attempt it, in fact.
Okay, sorry. I decided just to take a break and let that go because it's important for people to hear. Rest in peace, Bill Cooper. If you don't know about him, I would suggest researching him because like everything that he just said would correspond with what's going on in the world right now. And it's got to make you wonder, right? So let's create an instrumental. Slow trance with See if I can get. Oh, it's spacing out.
In the land where shadows
Okay. File new multi-track.
vast majority of what I call the American sheeple. These are people who are ignorant. Ignorant is not a bad word, it just means
It made it 2 seconds. How's that extended? That's not working so well.
knowledge. If we could educate them and get them to understand that it is more important to stand up now and take a personal risk and educate other people and say that this has all got to stop, and be able to select our own candidates and make sure they get elected no matter what the press or the television or anybody else tells us about them. Put them in office, people who will support, protect, and defend the Constitution.
Yeah, it's probably going to be our best option on that one. Ding, 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 ding. Yes, there you go.
The other is that we could somehow really educate the vast majority of what I call the American sheeple. These are people who are... The other is that we could somehow really educate the vast majority of what I call the American sheeple. These are people who are ignorant. Ignorant is not a bad word, it just means that they're without knowledge. If we could educate them and get them to understand that it is more important to stand up now and take a personal risk and educate other people and say that this has all got to stop, and be able to select our own candidates and make sure they get elected no matter what the press or the television or anybody else tells us about them. Put them in office, people who will support, protect, and defend the Constitution.
Alright, where did my tools go? Where is my tools?
If they spend the rest of their life, once they find out what that really means, in trying to find a daddy that will take care of them and take all the risk away from them and make sure that they have a job and that their diapers are changed and they have a bed to sleep in at night and a place to play and all of that kind of stuff, just like every other child in the world. And to stand up and be responsible and take a risk means that they're not going to find that. That's why socialism is so attractive to the vast majority of any people, not just Americans, but any people. It promises that they're going to have a daddy again who's going to take care of them. If they'll just give up all their rights and all their liberties, daddy will take care of them. And so that's what people are looking for. And you can see it in your daily life. That's the way they vote. That's what they want. They don't want to take personal responsibility. They don't want to take a risk. They're afraid of getting on a list. I've had people tell me to my face, Bill, I know all about this stuff, but I can't help you because I don't want to get on anybody's list.
Is it different anywhere else then, Bill? Because this question brings me to something I wanted to ask you anyway, and that is, in looking over other countries in the world, do you find any other countries with social or political models, even if it's only some aspect of their system, that you find worth emulating in other countries? Any other country or countries that you think go about the political process or the social contract, if you will, in a way superior to the United States?
No, I don't, as a matter of fact. Up until we began to take this left turn into socialism, the United States was the great light of the world, so to speak. We were the only free people who had ever existed in the entire history of humanity. We like to talk about our great heritage from England. The English were never free. They're not free today. They don't have freedom of speech. They don't have any of the freedoms that we've always had and cherished. In the history of the whole human race, the only people that have ever lived on this planet who have ever truly been free, the ultimate achievement of all humankind was to accept the individual as a king or queen in his or her own right, being responsible and having all of the freedom and liberties that they could possibly imagine right here in this country. And we created a government that was supposed to have a balance of power and was limited, strictly limited by the Constitution, and only given a very few powers in order to protect the freedom of the common man. That's all gone now. I mean, that's like you hear these politicians in Washington today talking about how the Constitution is an outdated document penned over 200 years ago by a bunch of doddering old men who did not understand the complexities of the modern age. They won't tell you what you should already know, is that the document is not an outdated old document. It is a living Constitution. It has within it the means for change should the people desire that it be changed. But the people don't desire that, so they just go ahead and throw it in the trash can anyway and go about their business doing anything that they want to do, while Joe Blow on the street doesn't even know that it's happening because he's never read the document that guarantees his freedom in his whole life.
So, Mr. Cooper, given the controversial nature of so many of the things that you have studied with regard to government and the law and the abuses thereof, tell us a little bit about how it has affected your personal life. You're a family man with 2 children. What kind of impact has the work you've done had on your family? Well,
that's quite an interesting question, and that doesn't get asked very much. But it's had a tremendous effect. If you want to find out how quickly society can turn against one, and I'm talking seriously here, stand up and tell the truth about just anything that you want to stand up and tell the truth about. It scares the living daylights out of everyone. And so the first thing that happens is you find out who your friends are and who your friends are not, because there's a great weeding out there. And it's not anything that you do on your part or that I've done on my part. They just disappear. And you find very quickly that people are afraid to be around you because that they can see the government being upset about what you're talking about. And they can see repercussions coming, and of course they have happened and will continue to happen. And ultimately, I really believe that there will be some kind of a terminal point where they decide that they're not just not going to put up with this pest anymore, and that's going to be the end of me. We have been literally financially in the ditch. We have found it impossible to get any kind of a normal job with anyone who knows anything about what I do. It's you can't go to church, you can't go to cocktail parties because everybody else is sitting around talking about the weather or, oh, what school did you go to? And when you have done the research and arrived at some of the answers that I know to be true now, those people become like kindergarten children. They're not in the real world, and I can't engage in that kind of a conversation. So you really find yourself in another world that has nothing to do with all of the rest of the people who are running around engaged in their activities that they think are so important to them. And to them, they really are. But to me, they've lost the reality of what really is important, and they're about to lose their freedom to even discover those things at this point.
I ask you a last question, and that is, how would you like to be seen or remembered in future years when people look back and you think about the thrust of your work? What is it that you would like to be best remembered for?
I think I would like to be remembered like Paul Revere was remembered. At a time when it was needed and nobody else would do it, I got on my horse and rode through the night and said, the British are coming. And this time it's not the British, although there's an element of the British here because England is a socialist country. I'm sure you know that. That's all. I'm not looking for any fame or any fortune. You certainly don't get rich doing what I'm doing. And infamous is probably the real word that describes what happens to you as far as public recognition in a world where political correctness is the theme of the day. You just don't do what I'm doing. So if anybody wants to remember me, I would certainly be pleased if they just remembered I did what was
years when people look back and you think about the thrust of your work. What is it that you would like to be best remembered for?
I think I would like to be remembered like Paul Revere was remembered. At a time when it was needed and nobody else would do it, I got on my horse and rode through the night and said, the British are coming. And this time it's not the British, although there's an element of the British here because England is a socialist country. I'm sure you know that. That's all. I'm not looking for any fame or any fortune. You certainly don't get rich doing what I'm doing. And infamous is probably the real word that describes what happens to you as far as public recognition in a world where political correctness is the theme of the day. You just don't do what I'm doing. So if anybody wants to remember me, I would certainly be pleased if they just remembered I did what was the responsible and the right thing to do at a time when nobody else had the guts to do it.
Well, Cooper, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Phoenix Audio Copyright 2005. Produced by Michael Wiener.
Audible hopes you have
It's got copyright. Mute it all. Let's just do it again and again and again and again. Let's get one song done today.
migrant crime, support our great police, strengthen our military, build a missile defense shield around our country, keep critical race theory and transgender insanity out of our schools, and we will keep men out of women's sports. We will defend the Second Amendment, and we're going to restore. Those people don't allow it. The fake news doesn't allow it. We will restore free speech in our country, and we will secure our elections, Mr. Congressman.
Hello, it's Mike Russell here from MusicRadioCreative.com. I wanted to show you one of the most powerful editing tools in Adobe Audition's waveform view. Have a listen to this audio here. I need to do a quick edit. Okay, so clearly a bit of a stumble in that voiceover, and I need to do a quick edit. Well, here's how to do it without even hitting the delete key. Select there, quick, so that's quick, and select there, quick. That's the start of the next quick. Okay, so we want to edit out all of that, but is it going to sound alright? Well, that's where this button comes into play, skip selection. Click it, and then play back your audio, and it will play everything, skipping the selection that you've highlighted. Listen, I need to do a quick edit. Well, that sounds fine to me.
In this episode, let's take a look at some of the analysis tools in Adobe Audition. Here we'll be taking a look at several of the analysis tools within Adobe Audition, which will help you to clean up your audio or just sweeten it and make it sound better. First up, and the one that I probably use the most, is the Amplitude Statistics panel. This is critical to getting your video to the target loudness, and especially so you can get consistent loudness from video to video or film to film. On the General tab, the first one that I use most often is the True Peak Amplitude. This is a measure of the peaks of your waveform, and typically what you want here is to get those no higher than minus 1.5 dB true peak, so that when you do your final export, nothing clips and distorts. Next up is average RMS. In the old school days, one of the things that they used often.
So you've just finished your video project and you mixed all your audio and you like how it sounds, but it's missing something. Take it to the next level by mastering the audio.
Well, thank you very much.
Today we're talking about basic dialogue mixing in Adobe Audition.
Hello, Phoenix. I'm thrilled to be back in this
now that
incredible
we've edited
state with
and adjusted
thousands
everything
of
to our
proud,
liking,
hardworking
we're
American
almost ready to mix down our
patriots. That's who
session.
you are. You built
But before
our
we do,
country.
it's always a good idea to apply some finishing
74
touches
days from now,
by using a
can you
variety
imagine
of mastering
74
effects
days,
to our production.
Then we
So
gently
these
move
three
into that
tracks,
beautiful White
music,
House and we
speaker A,
take
and
over
speaker
our
B
country
are
and we
all
make it
set,
great again.
but I need
We're
to
going
make some
win
adjustments to
Arizona.
our
We're
master
going to
output
defeat
here.
Comrade
So each one of these
Kamala
has its
Harris.
output set to the master,
And
and the
we're
master
going to
itself
win
has
back
the output
our
to our
beautiful
default
White House.
output,
We're gonna win
which
it
are
back.
basically
We're
our
going to win it
speakers.
back in record force. Everyone here tonight is part of the greatest political movement in the history of our country. You know, this is the greatest political movement. It's called Make America Great Again. And it's right now bigger and better and stronger than it ever was before. You know, we won in 2016, and we did much better in 2020. A lot of people don't understand that, but we understand it. Millions and millions more votes. But those two are nothing like the spirit that we have now. It's amazing. And that's because we've seen how bad government can be. That's why it's combinations of a lot of things. But the job they've done in destroying our country is unbelievable, and people have seen it. And because of that, there's never been anything like this. Right, Carrie? Right? Our movement is not about Democrat versus Republican. It's about patriotism and common sense. You have a common sense with a party of common sense. You say what you want. Nice to say conservative, but really, with a party of common sense, we want fair elections, free elections. We want strong borders. We want a great military. We want great education. We want a nice home and low interest rates or low taxes and no regulations. That's why we're welcoming support from millions and millions of disaffected Democrats, and they are joining like wildfire. Now it's a little different than it was. You know, we had somebody, I was up 18 points, and they said, Joe, you can't win. You're getting out of the race. No, I want to go and give it a shot. No, Joe, you're getting out of the race, Joe. And if you don't do it the nice way, we'll do it the tough way, Joe. And he said, okay, and now I have a new opponent. This never happened before. We spent $100 million and a lot of time on defeating him. And as soon as he was gonzo, it all started with the debate. The debate. All that time, all that effort. A friend of mine said, you did a terrible job in the debate. I said, why do you say that? Everybody said I was brilliant. They said, no, you got him out of the race with that debate. It's all right. We have to do what we have to do, right? We have to do what we have to do. And now we have somebody that, in theory, should be easier to beat, in theory.
Hi,
Because
I'm
she's a
Joseph
radical left
Lebrecht, and this is
Marxist,
Adobe
and everybody
Audition,
knows it.
a comprehensive tool set
But
that
we're
includes
welcoming the
multitrack,
support from millions of
waveform,
disaffected
and spectral
Democrats,
display
independents,
for creating,
moderates, old-fashioned
mixing,
liberals
editing,
who still
and
believe in
restoring
things like
audio
little
content.
things like borders. I was there
This
yesterday.
powerful audio
That's a
workstation is
scary
designed
place.
to accelerate video production
Sir,
workflows
it's about time that you
and
get out of
audio
the sun,
finishing,
sir. We're gonna have to get
and
you out
deliver
of
a
here, sir. Let's
polished
get the
mix
hell out of here.
with pristine
She was the
sound.
border czar. She presided
We are
over
going
the
to
worst
first
border
get a
in
good
history.
understanding of the Audition
Not American
interface
history,
and how to
world
configure
history.
it to work best with your hardware.
Democracy,
We'll then see how
liberty,
to import a video recording
and of course,
in order
always
to
the
clean
right of free
and
speech.
edit the
We don't really have
associated
free
audio
speech
track
right now. The press-
through native
Look at all of
Audition
them.
tools
Look at
and
all
effects.
of them. Look at that.
Finally, we'll examine how
Wow.
to arrange and produce a multi-track
Man.
mixdown from a set of conversational
That's
recordings.
a lot of press.
Much
That's
like
a lot of
podcast.
fake news.
Okay, keeping all this in mind, let's get started. How the workspace appears will depend upon which workspace layout is currently active. We'll be using default for most of our work in this course, but other workspaces are useful to specific workflows, and we'll pop into some additional ones as we find the need to do so.
Okay.
As you can see from up here, we are currently in the default workspace. You can switch to any other workspace by simply clicking on it, and these double arrows are going to give us additional workspaces to choose from. Each workspace has its own set of tools and panels. If you need to reset any of the workspaces, such as default, you can click on these three little bars here and choose to reset to saved layout. Note that you can also save any of your configurations as a new workspace. For the default workspace, we have our file browser right here, so any files that we're currently working on will appear in this area. Immediately below that is the media browser, where we can locate files if we wish. There's also the effects rack, where we can stack our different effects for our file. We have markers and properties. Properties will give us all the properties of the currently selected file. Below that, we have our history, where we can see the different edits that we've done and roll them back if we need to. And if we're dealing with video, we have a little video preview here. This comes in very handy if we pull in a video file to tweak the audio. Aside from that, we have our basic editor. The editor is going to allow us to preview a waveform and to make specific edits against it in waveform view or spectral view. Immediately below that is our levels. This is super important, especially when recording, because we have to make sure that our levels are high enough and not too low, but again, not too high either, because we don't want to clip our audio. This is also useful for seeing the noise floor when everything is quiet. We then have the essential sound panel, which allows us to do simple, direct things to our audio using some presets and so forth. And immediately below that, we have our selection/view panel. So here we can see what we have selected at the time, the start and end times for that, and the duration. And for our particular view. So what's actually showing up in the editor as opposed to the length of our full file. Again, note that every one of these different workspaces will be configured a little bit differently, but the default workspace is really going to serve us well for most of this course. Before we start working with any audio, we'll need to configure our hardware and adjust the routing preferences for all of our ins, outs, mics, monitors, speakers, and so on. This can all be done from the Audition Preferences dialog. What we'll need to do is open Preferences. Since I'm on Windows right now, I can do that through Edit, Preferences, and then choose one of my preferences. I'm going to open General first off. If you are on macOS, you would get to this menu not by the Edit menu, but through Audition Preferences. Going down here, we can see our channel mapping and audio hardware. I would suggest you always start with audio hardware. And this is going to change a little bit depending upon which operating system you're using, Windows or macOS, and also what kind of audio interface you have connected to your particular machine.
Okay, I got that figured out.
That's a hell of a lot of fake news. Marion, she never even made it to the first state, the great state of Iowa, never made it. And now she's the one running. A little strange, isn't it? You see, that's really a threat to democracy if you get right down to it, right? In our movement, we know that democracy does not mean rule by the Democrat establishment. It means rule by the American people. Tonight, I'm very pleased to welcome a man who has been an incredible champion for so many of these values that we all share, and we've shared them for a long time. I don't think
the other is that we could somehow really educate.
He's very low-key.
The other is that
he's a very low-key person, but he's highly respected. He is a great person. I've known him for so long. For the past 16 months, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr.
Yeah, no.
Man, whoa. And he deserves it. He deserves it. For the past 16 months, Bobby has run an extraordinary campaign for President of the United States. I know, because he also went after me a couple of times. I didn't like it. And I mean this sincerely. Had he been allowed to enter the Democrat primary, he would have easily beaten Joe Biden, but they wouldn't let him in. They put up rules. I've never seen rules like you had to have 65% of the vote in order to run, you know, little things like that. His candidacy has inspired millions and millions of Americans, raised critical issues that have been too long ignored in this country, and brought together people from across the political spectrum in a positive campaign grounded in the American values of his father, Robert Kennedy, a great man, and his uncle, President John F. Kennedy. And I know that they are looking down right now, and they are very, very proud of Bobby. I'm proud of Bobby. You want to know the truth? And I don't think I've ever introduced anyone that got applause like he just got. I must tell you, I don't think it's true. I don't think I've ever introduced anybody that got applause like that. Amazing. It's true. Amazing. Soon after I can't even believe I have to say this, nearly assassinated in Pennsylvania last month, Bobby called me to express his best wishes. He knows firsthand the risks incurred by leaders who stand up to the corrupt political establishment. When you stand up, you bring on some trouble for yourself, but you have to do what's right. You have to do what's right for the country. I will tell you, we are both in this to do what's right for the country. That's one thing I can tell you. He lost his father and uncle in service to our country, and Bobby himself was subject to repeated threats to his safety during the course of his campaign while being denied protection by the Harris-Biden administration. And this is a tribute in honor of Bobby. I am announcing tonight that upon my election, I will establish a new independent presidential commission on assassination attempts. And they will be tasked with releasing all of the remaining documents pertaining to the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. And they will also conduct a rigorous review of the attack last month. But I tell you, I have never had more people ask me, please, sir, release the documents on the Kennedy assassination. And we're going to do that. And I also want to salute Bobby's decades of work as an advocate for the health of our families and our children. Nobody's done more. Millions and millions of Americans who want clean air, clean water, and a healthy nation have concerns about toxins in our environment and pesticides in our food. That's why today I'm repeating my pledge to establish a panel of top experts working with Bobby to investigate what is causing the decades-long increase in chronic health problems and childhood diseases, including autoimmune disorders, autism, obesity, infertility, and many more. We want every child in America to grow up and to live a long and healthy life.
Yes.
So I just want to ask Bobby to speak for a little while. I'll stand aside. I'm going to stand aside. But I can only tell you, I've known him a long time. We've been a little bit on the opposite side of the equation, but I will say this, he is a brilliant, I still think of him as young. He's not that young. I always call him young, but he's not that young. But he is a phenomenal person, a phenomenal man who loves the people of this country as much as anybody can love the people of this country. So, Bobby, please say a few words. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, President Trump.
Have to be here supporting Trump. Wake up from your hate. Big Brother is watching you.
A few hours after the assassination attempt at Butler, I got a call from a safe food advocate named Kelly Means, who's been fighting for many years to try to end the corruption at CDC and FDA and USDA.
The other is that we could somehow really educate the vast majority of what I call the American
regulatory
sheeple.
agencies are actually run by the big food processing companies, the big ag and the chemical companies that they're supposed to regulate. And he said to me that he'd been advising me for many years and on my campaign. And he told me that night that he was also advising President Trump. And he asked if I would talk to President Trump. And I said, of course. And about a few minutes later, I got a call from the president. And we talked. We had a very good talk. And then he invited me to come see him the next day. And I went to Minneapolis and saw him.
These are people who are ignorant.
A couple of weeks later
Ignorant
in
is
Florida.
not a bad
And we
word.
talked
It just
about
means that
not
they're
about
without
the
knowledge.
things that separate us because we don't agree on everything, on the values and the issues that bind us together. And one of the issues that he talked about was having safe food and ending the chronic disease epidemic.
Yeah. My aunt died of breast cancer. I would love to see cancer go away.
Our children are now the unhealthiest, sickest children in the world. Don't you want healthy children? And don't you want the chemicals out of our food? And don't you want the regulatory
If we could
agencies to be
educate them.
free from corporate corruption?
If we could educate them and get them to understand
And that's
that
what
it is
President
more
Trump told me
important
that
to
he
stand up
wanted.
now
He
and take
also
a
told
personal
me
risk and
that he
educate
wanted
other
to
people
end the grip of
and say
neocons on
that this
US
has all
foreign
got to stop
policy.
and be able to select our own candidates and make sure they get
said he
elected no
didn't
matter
want
what the
any
press or the
more
television or anybody else
$200
tells us about them.
wars in
Put them in
Ukraine
office,
that we
people
could
who will
use that
support,
money back
protect, and
here in the
defend the
United
Constitution,
States.
like the liars and the charlatans who are in office now swear to do. When
And the safest, the best way to build a safe America is to rebuild our industrial base and rebuild the middle class in this country. And don't you want a president who's going to get us out of the wars and who's going to rebuild the middle class in this country?
Yes, we do, John. Yes, we do.
And he told me that he wanted to end the censorship because the whole basis of American democracy is the free flow of information. And we know that a government that can silence its opponents has license for any kind of atrocity. And can you think of any time that you can look back in history and say that the people who were censoring were the good guys? They're always the bad guys, because it's always the first step down that slippery slope to totalitarianism. And don't you want a president who's going to protect America's freedoms? And who is going to protect us against totalitarianism? And I want to ask you again, don't you want a safe environment for your children? Don't you want to know that the food that you're feeding them is not filled with chemicals that are going to give
tells
them
us about
cancer
them.
and chronic disease?
Put them in office, people who will support, protect, and defend the Constitution, like the
And don't
like
you
the
want a
liars
president
and
that's
the
going to make
charlatans who are
America
in office
healthy
now
again?
swear to do.
Thank you all very, very much, and God bless you, and God bless America.
Charlatans who are in office now swear to do. Charlatans who are in office now swear to do.
Wow, that was something, huh? That was something. Fantastic guy. You know, he did well, and the polls are good and all, but you have to remember we have sort of like a two-party system. It was designed that way, and it's awfully tough. And as well as he did, he'd be at 10 and 15 and 16 points sometimes. That's a lot. That's a lot. But if he were in a regular system, like as a Democrat or perhaps as a Republican, but not against me, of course. But if he were in a regular system, there are a lot of people that maybe liked him the best. But they said, we can't vote. So with all of those votes he was getting, he has a lot of votes that he could have gotten. I think he's going to have a huge influence. We're leading now, but I think he's going to have a huge influence on this campaign. Actually, much bigger than you'd see in the polls, and those numbers are big to start off with, but Bobby and I will fight together to defeat the corrupt political establishment and return control of this country to the people. And to all who supported Bobby's campaign, I very simply ask you join us in building this coalition. It's a beautiful coalition in defense of liberty and safety, prosperity and peace. It's going to be an incredible coalition, and the relationship has been so good for so long. I have no doubt it's going to work and work well. But we have to win. We have to take our country away from these people that are going to destroy our country. We won't have a country left. So thank you very much. We need your vote. As you all know, this week the Democrats held their convention. You probably saw it, their party. The media says the big message from their convention was that we need to turn the page from the failures of the last 4 years. Do you believe it? They forgot. They've run it for the last 4 years. She was saying last night, we will stop the abuse. We will stop the high taxes. I said that you could have done it 3.5 years ago. In fact, you could leave that nice auditorium that you're in and go to the White House right now. You want to have a strong border? All you have to do is say to the incredible Border Patrol, ICE, law enforcement, close the border now. You don't need bills. I did it. And we had the best border in history. Put up that chart. Put it up. That chart. I love that chart.
That life-saving chart.
I love that chart. Put it up.
Too.
But I love that chart.
Yes,
not everybody realizes, but that chart is very meaningful. Even beyond the numbers that are on the chart, it shows the least numbers of illegal immigrants pouring into our country. Again, prisons from mental institutions, terrorists, where the bottom arrow is. But you know what? That chart is meaningful in many ways. Some people understand what I'm talking about. I love you, darling. I love you. I'm going to sleep with that chart tonight, Deb. I'm going to sleep with that chart. But isn't that a beautiful sight? Look at that. Look at that arrow. And then look what happens when that was my last week in office. And look what happens after I left. It's like a rocket ship. Look at that. Isn't that terrible? No vetting, no checking. We have no idea who they are. They just pour into our country by the millions and millions and millions. We need to turn the page of 4 years of calamity and failure. They have had calamity and failure, and say, Kamala, you've done a horrible job. You've been the worst vice president in the history of our country. Kamala, you're fired. You're fired. Get out. Get out. Get out, Kamala. She's the only person ever to get a nomination of a party without getting one vote. She didn't get one vote.